watch Jordan Peterson, who is already quite red in the face while talking to Piers Morgan. You are going to watch this man have a breakdown, apparently. I haven't seen this yet. I have only been told of it. They are currently, and we're not watching the beginning of this, they are currently talking about the Adolescence show on Netflix, and they're mad about it. They also talked about some other stuff, but right now they're talking about, like, basically incels. So let's jump on board.
Jesus, talk about putting the cart before the horse. And it's exactly what you'd expect from the progressive playbook. It's like, we're going to double down on the incels. Well, why don't you give some thought to trying to figure out why they're so bloody isolated, why young men and women are so isolated from one another now that they don't even date. They don't drive.
Yeah, man. Motherfuckers like you. That's the answer. You. Jordan? Look at his face. It's your fucking fault. And incel leaders like you who mobilize men into thinking that their disenfranchisement comes from women and their interaction with the dating pool rather than capitalism and the crushing obedience that they're forced to give to corporations in order to live and thrive. And, of course, due to the atomization that reeks across us, right? Like, you know, third spaces go away because there's no profit in having, like, nice places to be in your community. What we're here for is not to have a good time, not to have high quality lives, or you know, nice walkable cities. The point is to make money, make dollars. Of course, the right wing is terrible at that. Their Trump tariffs show you as much. Every time we have a Republican president, we get a deficit. That's so crazy. You are the reason that incels are a problem. The reason that there's a gap between men and women is because men are disappointing.
Drive. They don't drink. They don't go out. They don't date. They don't marry. Why is that? Well, how about 60 years of radically demoralizing, quasi-feminist, dimwit, hedonistic, leftist propaganda shoveled at them from grade 1 all the way through university.
I mean, I can tell you how to make them kids happy. It's pretty easy. You make sure that they have the things that they need, so shelter, food, and access to education. You make sure that they have quality interactions with their peers, so you have to teach them how to, like, consent to one another in order to act and to share and to like, you know, express themselves openly. And you have to let them, like I said, express themselves openly. So that's, like, a big part of it. They have to be able to be themselves, and you can't just, like, tell kids they have to act a certain way. You do all of those things, and then you find yourself brainwashing a bunch of incels into thinking that if only they listen to Jordan Peterson, they'll figure their shit out. It's, like, not happening. It's pretty clear that Jordan Peterson is not winning this fight, and as the right, like, and he's saying, like, why are there a bunch of incels? And then you look at the voting records of young people in the group he's talking about, and a lot of the men have shifted to the right wing. And it's specifically this Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, fucking Tate Bros type bullshit that poisons their little minds, and then women are like, yeah, I don't fucking want to be around these dumbasses, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all, man.
And of course they're going to turn to figures like Andrew Tate in their desperation.
You don't like Andrew Tate? You do the same thing. Dude, I know Jordan Peterson isn't, like, as crass as Andrew Tate is or whatever, and I think probably Andrew Tate is a worse person, but, like, the content is not that dissimilar insofar as, like, what the end message is, and that is that you don't really have to change yourself all that much, buddy. Like, really, it's society that changes. Like, his book on, like, oh, you just have to do these 12 steps and change your life, they aren't actual advice on how to, like, the clean your room thing. That's a metaphor for tidying up, like, your relationships and not hanging out with stoners and leftists. I'm not joking. Like, that's what the book fucking says. These aren't actual, like, get your life together things. The content of the chapters is not really helping folks.
But, you know, you might as well do a causal analysis and try to figure out why they're so bloody demoralized to begin with. And I would say I actually know something about that, because I think I've
Jordan
talked to more demoralized young people in the last 10 years than anybody on the planet.
So it's weird that you foster a culture of men that shows up to you without any sort of like self-worth or any sort of like prospects in life, and then they just sort of stay there for 10 years wallowing in the sort of cycle of right-wing thought on the subject of sexuality and expression. Like, you guys just don't solve any problems. The best thing the right wing ever does is say, there's a problem! They just fucking yell that there are problems, but they have no fucking idea how to solve anything. Stop growing men uneducated with minimal fucking prospects to find fulfillment in life, and then telling them the only thing that will fulfill them in life is to have a family. And then women are property. Like, you give them all this conflicting information, and the fucking ingredients don't mix, man. They're like, why can't I bake a cake? And you gave them fucking dirt to make it with. No fucking wonder, dude. They haven't taken home ec. I don't know. Because it's gay. It's gay to take home ec.
And I've watched and seen what works. And more demoralization is not the answer, you know, and there's something...
More demoralization is not the answer. So they're talking about adolescence. I didn't want to watch their conversation on adolescence, and I don't care what their review is of it. But the conversation is not about demoralizing men. The conversation about the topic doesn't really point blame at the child for, like, the way he is like, his actions, yes. I don't have to give you any spoilers. You could watch it if you want. It's like 4 episodes. It's good. But it explores like a young man that is accused of a crime. He's accused of killing another student, and it's framed as like an incel murder thing. And you sort of watch the show, and then it unfolds in front of you, and you figure out what happened. But it's also I think more importantly, and like really like the last episode drives it home. It's about the environment that these kids come up in, and it's about the men who raise them. It's about the women who raise them too, but it's about the men. It's about how men act and how we need to address it. And like, you're saying that telling men to amend their behavior is just piling on and just making them more and more insecure. And it's just not the case. If you're an incel and you don't want to be, I can fucking help you. But here's the thing, man, and I think, like, men used to be about this a little bit. I mean, tough love is kind of part of reality, like, and not in the way usually toxic men think it, where they can just yell at someone and then call it tough love. But I mean, like, sometimes telling someone what to do means that they're going to have to, like, go through an uncomfortable phase of figuring out how to act better. You know what I mean? I could probably help every single person that ever talked to me if they wanted to learn how to date and they wanted to spend enough time doing it. I could help everybody, but I'm only one man, you know. Jordan Peterson doesn't offer this shit at all. He doesn't help anybody. He can't even help himself. Does he look like a fucking happy guy?
Remarkable about well-socialized masculinity. You know, one of the things I learned, for example, when I was writing my last book,
It doesn't help that men who treat women well are called simps by toxic men. Who gives a fuck? Like, who cares? You're a simp for my wife? Sure, I guess. I think simps are actually also sexist, for the record. Like an actual simp. So a simp in the real sense is someone who bends over backwards to please women in a deference to their sex or gender in some sort of like performative way. It's ridiculous. Most dudes are just like nice to the people they love in general, and if it happens to be a woman, it's not a big deal. As far as being a nice guy, man, I don't know. I feel like a lot of nice guys are not nice, and they feel like they are owed some kind of like sex in return for being kind. But that's what I'm saying. I know it's used as an insult, but who gives a fuck? Someone calls you a simp, be like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, part of life is like people are going to be assholes, and like the stuff they say is really stupid. And sometimes you're just going to like, no matter what reality we live in, there's going to be dumbasses, and we just have to be able to have a little bit of fucking Teflon on our skin and be able to be like, yeah, fuck off, I don't care. Like, who gives a fuck? That guy thinks I'm a simp. He's lonely, you know? He's a simp. No, he's jealous. And he's lashing out. This is the same boys that fucking throw shit at girls that they like instead of just talking. You know what I mean? Like, same exact shit. Who gives a fuck?
The things I analyzed was the symbolic use of the figure of the shepherd in the.
I agree that if you're lacking community or whatever, sure. But like even then, like part of the reason that you're lacking community is going to be your ability to socialize with others, and like if you're an incel, that's gonna hurt. If you can't fucking like joke with people, it's gonna hurt. I mean, there's just so many fucking different things. Like, and it comes from usually the failures of your parents mixed with your personal idiosyncrasies. I mean, that's just really, it's a case by case thing, and everybody has to like, you just got to figure out what you don't like, how you want to live, man. But like telling kids the complexities of how do I find happiness is like, you know what I think would be best is if like people realize that you're not going to find, like, happiness isn't something you discover one day and then you have it forever. It's a maintained experience of life. It's just your well-being. And so it's a garden, man. Happiness is a garden, bro. You got to tend to it, but for real, like, it's not like you just don't like stumble upon it and then you got that shit. So
biblical corpus, right? Because the shepherd figures large both in the Old Testament and in the New.
Oh my fucking God. Back to his Christian grift.
And the reason for that is because a shepherd is a very good symbol of well-socialized, ordinary masculinity. So
the shepherd is well-socialized, organized masculinity. Shepherds were fucking lone dudes that sometimes like fucked the goats that were out there wandering in the wilds, grazing without a soul around them. Hermits to the world almost always, especially in biblical times, man. They were part of the nomadic tribe. Like, come on.
So shepherds in the ancient Middle East had to live by their own wits, right, in the wilderness. And so they were tough guys, and they had to.
So how's that well socialized? And that's not the type of guy that you want to be now. That's not well socialized. That's a rough and tumble fella.
Keep the wolves and the lions at bay with pretty primitive weapons, as exemplified in the story of Moses and in the story of David, for example. But at the same time, they had to protect the most vulnerable, right? And lamb is a pretty good example of, something vulnerable and edible, especially by monsters. And so the model for masculinity, the biblical model for masculinity, at least in part, is tough enough to keep the bloody wolves and the lions at bay. And what would you say? Resourceful enough to survive on your own, and then devoted to caring for the most vulnerable. And that's a pretty damn good model. And it's
you do not have to, if you're a man, you don't have to do that stuff. You just seek happiness. It does not matter. If you don't want to be a shepherd, don't be one. There's no, like, this is what we're talking about. Like, you tell young men they have to live a certain way, become a top lobster. The left says, free yourself of this stuff. Free yourself of this. You don't need to perform masculinity. Just be you, and then they freak the fuck out, and then they say you're not a man. And then these incels get so mad about their fucking jaw width and their chins and their fucking nasal lengths. Fucking phrenologists out here like, I'm never gonna kiss a girl because my lips are too thin or something. I don't know. Like, shut up, man. You're a kid. You'll kiss somebody if you're cool. I'm telling you, if you are fun to be around, you're going to kiss somebody. I promise. Okay? Now, it takes a little bit more than that. You gotta put yourself in this position. But you can't do it without being cool. You got to be cool.
Certainly exemplified, well, of course, by the figure of Christ in the New Testament, who's meta-shepherd, you might say, and capable of keeping the worst evils at bay while simultaneously serving the most alienated and vulnerable. And that's the right model for masculinity. And if you don't think that exists, well, you're definitely part of the problem and not.
Do you see? That's the model for masculinity. And if you don't think that that's the model for masculinity, you're part of the problem. Like, how do you think you're gonna? There's no guy who lives in the modern world who is going to live akin to a shepherd from biblical times. It's ridiculous.
Part of the solution. And maybe you're a woman who's been damaged by men who've entered into your life who are radically immature or mad users of power, and that's really sad, and there's plenty of that too. But that doesn't mean that at its core there's something pathological about masculinity. And it certainly doesn't mean that the radical leftist proclivity to describe everything as an oppressive patriarchy and to make men weak is doing anything other than hurting young people.
It's crazy that you describe a narrow path through which masculinity can be reached, and then you say in the same breath that the leftists are the ones that put these like weird standards on people, and you're oppressed because, or we describe it as oppression when you try to control people's lives. You know what I mean? Like same religious guy that tries to, like, it's all patriarchal.
Right to the core. And Starmer's posturing with regards to adolescence is only going to make that worse. It's bad psychology, and it's not only that, it's also oriented not to help young people, but to make Mr. Starmer feel a hell of a lot more secure in the idiot presumptions of his dimwit progressivism.
So if you just add adjectives to it, it's good. Alrighty. Fucking we need to break the thesaurus out so that we can get quality digs in at the conservative mindset. I don't really want to reiterate myself, but he doesn't offer good advice.
Bicycles!
Just came in. Why is he so red? Well, he had a little bit of a cry earlier. I don't know if he might cry more.
So, and that's really the fundamental aim. It's like, how can we show we're right? And if we have to burn some young people on the pyre to make sure that our moral presuppositions can remain intact and our faith in our idiocy remains unchallenged, then we might as well teach kids using a Netflix series on adolescence.
I don't think the Netflix series Adolescence is targeted at adolescent people. I think it was for adults. I don't think progressivism is teaching kids anything particularly malevolent. I'm trying to think of like the most pernicious, like, lefty kid problem. Tablet time, screen time.
Jesus, brutal, pathetic, to the core. This terrible moral posturing. You know, that's, I think, the most pathological element of our age.
I wish he would be at all specific. He just says how terrible it is and then doesn't really like get into what's terrible. He says, it's woke. The woke moralists are at it again. Benzo tears and manly fears. Nice.
You know, how can we garner as much undeserved moral credit as we possibly can? Well, we'll stand up against toxic masculinity and we'll worship the planet.
Worship the planet? Is he talking about climate change suddenly? So toxic masculinity is part of the problem if you're an incel, right? Like, so an incel says, women won't like me unless I'm 6 foot tall, have a six pack, and have six figures. And that is just toxic masculinity. It is the prime example of men setting unreasonable standards on other men and then making them feel bad about themselves when they don't reach those fake standards, right? Those arbitrary standards. Most men aren't 6 feet tall. Most men aren't going to maintain a six pack their whole lives. Like, human bodies aren't really like built for that. You have to be like dehydrated and like work out a lot. And six figures is, I mean, that puts you in the top like fucking 10%, I think. Top 10% of people make six figures or some shit. It's really not that much. You would be surprised if you had taken a look at that. 20th percentile. There you go.
You know, God, it's so appalling, so destructive. And the evidence is also in Pierce. It's like, look at Germany, for God's sake. What a mess. And
I don't even know what Germany is. Germany woke, dude? How woke is Germany, chat?
You guys in the UK, you're not much better. And we're walking down the same road in Canada. So Western Europe as a whole, you know. I've gone through Eastern Europe many times now, talked to many Eastern Europeans there, and they're appalled at what's happening in the West, and they're rightly so.
Dude, it's so funny how conservatives are being forced further and further towards Russia. They're like, you know what? Actually, Eastern Europe, which is known for its successes, is definitely appalled at what's going on in the West. Some fucking babushka who's seen 3 wars is like, men aren't made the way they used to be. Men used to kill people with Kalashnikovs every week when I was a kid. She's also from Virginia, it sounds like.
It's all part of the same mess that Starmer's still pushing. You know, a race to the bottom. Christ.
Bottom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jordan, I'm always struck by how emotional you get when you talk specifically.
Yeah, is that manly? Is it manly to cry? No, right? And that's an example of toxic masculinity. Piers Morgan would make fun of a leftist for crying, and now it's like, look at you, Jordan, you're red in the face and crying it all the time.
And this has happened a few times when I've talked to you. I think when your mind takes you specifically to young men who've come and told you what they've been going through, and it's almost like you've become a surrogate dad to just, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions.
A surrogate dad. Piers, that's fucking pathetic. Oh, okay. If Jordan Peterson is a surrogate dad for hundreds of millions of young men, can we pull back one step backwards from that statement? This implies hundreds of millions of deadbeat dads from your generation, which is definitely the experience of people in my age and younger. So, explain that and the failures of men without implicating yourselves in the process. Can we talk about the failure of men from a social perspective? Let's just cold, hard anthropology this. Can we at all? That's not fair. That men are abject failures at socializing well with one another and us and the rest of society? That's definitely fair. That's 100% fair.
Of young men who, for whatever reason, have been lost and feel abandoned and feel confused and don't have anyone to try and steer them to, some better place. Why does it affect you so emotionally, that?
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy because, you'd think he'd have
to test yourself, to know the glories of combat.
Sounds to me like crying is the hardest thing for a man to do. I guess that means you're not a real tough guy unless you can cry without embarrassment. I guess so.
Well, Piers, before
You look like a red-shifted Max Headroom. I don't know what that is.
my public presence emerged, let's say, or developed, I worked as a clinical psychologist, and that was pretty intense. I spent about 13 hours a week, maybe more than that, listening to people at a very deep level. I really liked that. It was unbelievably interesting. It was like one Dostoevskian novel after another, hour by...
Dude, this fucking guy, he can only... He's like, if I say Dostoevsky, people are going to think I'm real fucking smart. Ah, I see. He reads Russian literature. A thinker.
by hour, and I really learned to listen. And people...
Does he listen? I don't fucking agree. I've really learned to listen, unless they're trans or women. I've read your fucking book, man. I've read 2 of them. It's not good.
People are so fascinating if you listen to them.
Yeah, why did you lose your license, Jordan? As a psychologist, wouldn't listen to the trans experience. Wouldn't even listen. I think it is undeniable. It's undeniably true that the phenomenon of transness and like people experiencing gender dysphoria or just experiencing gender in a different way than like Jordan Peterson or his kind experience it. I think this is objectively a true phenomenon, right? Like, it's clear millions of human beings are like, yeah, I don't know, that's just not how I feel. It seems not worth it to argue over someone's ability to self-express, but Jordan Peterson, who is a good listener, can't even hear that. He can't even hear, no, they can totally express themselves how they want. It's nuts. I don't know how you can be, and he's not, I don't know, like Jordan isn't. I don't know how you can be a secular person and be transphobic at the same time. It's idiocy.
And they actually start to tell you what they think. They're unbearably interesting. It's just partly why people keep the conversations at a shallow, and polite level. And it's not surprising. But I like to go deeper than that. And that was kind of bounded when I was doing my clinical practice. It was a set number of hours a week. And I had many other things to occupy myself with. But then when the work I was doing started to explode, I was in contact with thousands of people, not
I'm going to write a self-help book. It's time. No, I'm not. I don't have any passion for that shit.
individuals. And they talked to me, and I could see this demoralization, and it's part of fatherlessness.
Fatherlessness? I have a question. Do men have anything to do with fatherlessness? Do we think the men have any culpability in this? No? Okay.
No.
No, you're right. No, men are victims of themselves. I see. Okay. Put a 1 in chat if your dad didn't do a good job. I'm going to put a 1 in chat. Did your dad do a good job? 1 if he did not do a good job. Okay, yeah. That's what I suspected. Okay, you can permission to put 2 in chat if you had a decent dad. Shout out to good dads. It's not a sliding scale. 1 or 2, pick. 1, but stepdad stepped up. Let's fucking go. That's what I'm saying. So, like, do you see how, like, it's just everybody know, and okay, here's an even better one. 100% of people. 1 if you know a bad father. 1 in chat if you know a bad father. I don't know anyone who doesn't know somebody who has a piece of shit dad. Right. Of course. Bad fathers are everywhere. We all know it. And the reason is very simple. Men are not socialized to be good fathers. They're not even socialized to be good men. They're socialized to be laborers and killers. We use them for violence and we use them for hard labor on account of the billionaire class. That, of course, the right wing props up because they personally profit from it. It is over and over and over the same thing. How are our fathers supposed to be good men if some of our fathers went to Vietnam or were raised by people who went to war, and those men were raised by men who went to war, and those men as well, and those men were raised by slavers, and those men were raised by colonists? Do you think that the actions of the men have been good historically? Because I fucking don't. And so, it seems to me, Jordan, as a man, welcome to the club, we should collectively, instead of scapegoating wokeness or passing the buck off to the women, how about men deal with their shit? It's crazy that I'm told that the left is like, oh, they're just, it's participation awards and pussy. They're pussies. And the right wing is filled with the incels. Filled with them. What the fuck? Make it make sense. I don't know how much more of this I can stomach. I'm going to let him finish crying.
Mommy! Or Daddy! I just need a little help.
Exactly.
Broadly speaking, and sometimes specifically. And I could see the pathway to rectifying that. Like, the pathway to rectifying that, as far as I've been able to understand, and I've understood this more deeply as the years have gone by, is that we're built for adventure.
We're built for adventure. Okay, so what he's going to try and fail to describe is men yearning for adventure. Okay, but do you know what that really fucking is? Do you know what that actually is? That is people, men or otherwise, that yearn for self-actualization and to be fulfilled by the activities or work that they're engaged in, right? Just looking for fulfillment and joy in the things that they do. However, the capitalist system and the billionaire class forces these men to do things they don't want to do. To wake up early and to go to a factory and to build bombs that they send overseas to kill people so that he can make money, so that he can feed his newborn kid and his wife with fucking Stofers from the microwave in his prefabricated home. That's the American fucking dream. And this isn't different in the UK where Piers is, or in Canada where Jordan's from. This is the same shit. Although in Canada they're doing a little bit better at it, but it's still, not the greatest.
And you take on adventure by taking on maximal responsibility, and that's the symbol of hoisting your cross voluntarily and trudging up the hill, right? And that's the
hoisting your cross. Ah, yes, manhood. It should be as rigorous as being crucified. Yeah. How the fuck are we surprised Jordan Peterson is constantly crying and red-faced and going to rehab for benzos and failing to help the young men that read his stupid fucking books? It's been over a decade. Not one of these men has fixed their lives unless they've left the right. This is insane.
The symbol upon which our society is founded. And
do you see how he keeps? It's never. He's just been so blatant since the Trump years, basically. Like, he is so far up the Christian nationalist pipeline. It's a clear grift. Yes, the symbol of our nation, a man carrying a cross to the top of a hill. Not our symbol. Not the symbol of the nation whatsoever.
The adventure of life justifies its suffering, and it's...
The adventure of life justifies its suffering? Suffering is a consequence of a neutral universe, of being animals on a planet, and being able to perceive pain and foresee, or at least imagine and conjure ideas of what the future might look like. Because we can look into the future with like a sense of self. It gives. I mean, that's really what the suffering is. Being able to sense pain is one aspect of it, but most of the pain that humans experience is the mental anguish that comes along with the pain. Like, that's really the kicker. And so life can be complicated and stuff. And instead of telling men, "Hey man, life is hard out there. You got to find out who you are and you got to seek happiness. Like, figure out what gets you going, whatever that is, and just follow that. And then you might follow other things, and you just find passions along the way. It's not going to be one thing; it'll be many things. If we allowed people to do that, you would see more fulfillment.
Maximized with maximal responsibility, and it's maximized with truth. Because if you tell the truth,
you're a Christian right winger. You don't tell the truth. This is exactly it. He just proselytizes from his whatever media outlet is letting him on. And he just says things that sound compelling, right? Like, if you've never heard Jordan Peterson, what an impassioned man that cares about the youngins. If you just tell the truth, then Jordan Peterson must tell the truth. It's just so sick. Like, these grifters and snake oil salesmen should be fucking kicked off of this kind of stuff. He's genuinely a harmful human being. When he finally succumbs to his benzos, it'll be good for the humanity that has been left behind. Because it's just harmful bullshit.
What should happen as a consequence of the truth makes itself manifest in the world. And that's the best possible outcome. But it's also the most adventurous thing that you can do, the most exciting thing you can do, hands down. There's nothing that compares to it. That pathway of maximal responsibility, voluntary responsibility, and truth. And I understand that deeply at a religious level.
He's going to go on for 20 more minutes, and I'm not watching it. That is, we can. If I absolutely must at some point, maybe I'll revisit this if more of these need to go around. But oh my God, how can you tell people to find happiness when every time I see you, you're having a fucking breakdown? Like, literally, look at this guy. He's dying. This is a perishing man right here. I wish him well. If you're an incel, this is a sort of a what are those called? Like a PSA. This is a PSA. If you're an incel and you would like to not be one, for real, I would like to talk to you. I think it's good. I think it's good to talk to you. I would love to pick your brain and let you know that the stuff that's making you unhappy has been sort of fed to you, and you're sort of like you've been tricked. I know that doesn't sound nice, but like dudes like Jordan Peterson are just tricking people. Sorry, you've been a victim. So you're not a victim in the way you think you are. The women aren't doing anything bad to you, but Jordan Peterson has, and guys like him.